You share the screen.
According to the program, actually, Tamara, Daria and I should be first presenters.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mind. I thought that I was the first. Then I don't mind. I will close the demonstration. 1 minute, please.
Yeah, but let me check. But okay, Tamara, I'm sorry. So yeah, floor is yours. It was my mistake. I just want to say several words. We are happy to welcome everybody in our section devoted to the network analysis, social movements, and mass behavior. And we are welcoming our first speaker today. Tamara, please, you may share your screen and start your presentation.
Okay, so do you see my screen?
Yep.
Great. Well, my name is Tamara Shuglova. I'm from International Laboratory for Applied Network Research. And today I will talk about the topic of social spatial urban segregation, precisely about the theoretical and methodological basis for its analysis. I guess this will be a warm-up before the presentation with the real scientific research results, because I'm going to present the project of the research. So I will talk about the multiplicity of definitions of the concept and talk. Then I will state the problem of the research. We'll talk about the theoretical and methodological frameworks, and finally I will show some image of the future result. Well, the urban segregation research is being held on the edge of the different scientific disciplines. It's not purely a sociological problem, either it's not purely urban planning problem. This is the combination of different approaches, different theories from different scientific fields. And that is why each scientific area defines this concept, this phenomenon in its own way, and there is no unique definition of this phenomenon. For example, from the point of view of urban planners and social geographers, social segregation, urban segregation is the social hierarchy of urban spaces that includes the unequal distribution of public goods and the different unequal access to some facilities and living conditions. From the point of view of political scientists, this is the division of people by race or ethnicity. From the point of view of sociologists, this is the division of people according to their communication types. The people from different groups do not interconnect with each other, and that is why they somehow limit their spheres of life, both in terms of physical space and some psychological boundaries. If we speak about the definition of urban segregation from the point of view of urban economists and architects, we can say that this is the separation of individuals by social status, by income, and so on. I guess I can continue this list of definitions, but I probably stop here and just say that in the most general view, as most people understand it, the segregation is the separate living of different groups of population. And like I said, there is no consensus on what to qualify as urban segregation, but although we can say that it has both special factors and the social factors. However, in the scientific literature, there is a lack in theoretical justification between these spatial forms and social forms of urban segregation. And if we speak about the shift in criteria for segregation like 100 years ago and nowadays, we can say that these criteria are different. If 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, the race, ethnicity, and the place of residence played the crucial role.
Excuse me, Tamara. For some reason, slides on your screen are not changing. Can you please reload it again?
Okay. Okay.
Or probably turn the video off and then it will be seen.
Do you see my screen now?
Yes, we see a screen. Yeah, maybe Yeah, now everything is changing.
Okay, so maybe I will just move between slides like this.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, like I said, that some time ago, the crucial factors, the criteria for segregation were the race, ethnicity, and the place of residence. Now these factors play much less role, and more importantly are the types of activities of people, their interests, their the ways they spend their spare time, and their social interactions, their social circle. And also this process of urban segregation is bidirectional, because on the one hand, the government, the developers create the conditions for urban segregation because they build the houses for different classes, they create special infrastructure that differentiate people in advance. On the other hand, individuals define to shape their life in their own way. They choose the neighbors where they want to live with, and they choose the places they want to visit, and somehow the market adapts to their needs and to their interests. And the problem that I see here has two directions. The first one is theoretical, which is about the like uncertainty about what urban segregation today is, because it includes more and more social phenomena now. And on the other hand, this is a methodological problem, because if we do not know what urban segregation is, we do not know how to define it. So this is the circle which we need to break, and to define the to define the concept and to find the ways to measure it. And speaking about theoretical framework, I think that the base here is the concepts of human ecology of Chicago Sociological School that treat the human ecology as the natural mechanisms that create the typical way of organizing people, which leads to some differentiation between groups. And on the other hand, the segregation is the natural reaction to this growing city and to like this impersonality in this city. So by merging into groups, they somehow try to make their life more predictable and to feel better. And speaking about the network perspective, I like this quotation by Michael Batty, who said that to understand cities, we must see them not as places in space, but as systems of networks and flows. And to understand flows, we must understand flows. To understand flows, we must understand networks. And the relationships between objects that make up this system of the city. And I also like the thought of Linton Freeman, who said that the segregation that is made only by the physical separation is very limited segregation, and to measure segregation properly, we need to include the understanding of how different social groups interact with each other within this social spatial space. And speaking about the methodological framework and some methods, I also propose the ideas of social network analysis here, because first of all, networks can improve the accuracy of existing theoretical concepts. For example, if we go back to the Chicago school and the idea of Robert Park's idea of the city that he proposed as the mosaic of small worlds that touch each other but do not interpenetrate each other, it's actually very connected with the idea of some network concepts regarding these issues. And secondly, because networks can offer a different way of thinking. For example, if we look at the neighbors who live in some place, we do not understand the the rationale on how they, why are they combined in this group, how this group was formed. But if we look at them as the people who connect with each other and interact on a regular basis, we understand how this association was formed. And also, the cartographic methods propose here a big deal, because they allow to measure some places within the city according to mental and emotional levels, to give some social meanings to places and space. And with the help of new technologies, we can differentiate these places in space, connect them with the real people, and to make a great analysis. And as a result of this work, I think that we need to make a new definition of the urban segregation, which will include the social phenomena and special phenomena, and the new methodology that will also include this new understanding of the urban segregation, and which will use the new data, the new types of technologies, for instance, like open data and such tools as OpenStreetMap, Yandex Maps, Tugis, that can help to find information about the social infrastructure and some physical barriers that exist in the city. So yeah, I guess this is the main references here, and I can finish and answer your questions and listen for your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara. We have 5 minutes for questions. Okay, please.
Can I put a question? Yeah. What do you expect? What is your expectation? What do you expect from your study of this using network method for urban segregation?
So actually, with this methodology, I would like to get the idea of how to analyze the city in a new way. This could be helpful for instance, for developers, for people who shape the city, and on the other hand, for people who navigate in the city to understand this more precisely.
And the main focus, what do you like to, the main focus, could you specify the main focus is social inequality, something like this, or why in general you would like to study this?
First of all, I would like to study it from the methodological point of view. I would like to find the spatial analysis and the social analysis, and on the basis of this, to understand how the different groups of people interact with the city. Is it comfortable for them to be separated from each other? Maybe they do not even need to be in touch. Or maybe there are some problems in this segregation and it should be dealt somehow.
Thank you.
I also have a question, if I may. Tamara, you mostly referred to Western studies devoted to the analysis of segregation, but as far as I know, we have our own kind of segregation in our cities, associated with spatial organization of space and segregation of different, I could say, social classes in this space. Do you have any intuition how can you take into account our local specific, or you want to just use this, universal frame to analyze this phenomena here?
Actually, I don't have a real answer for your question, but I can say that we cannot use universal frame for analysis of all the cities, because Russia has its own specifics. For instance, we do not have these, and never had these racial and ethnic, I mean, had, but very, very long time ago, ethnic and racial segregation, because the Soviet Union created these equal opportunities for all to live in equal conditions. And mostly now we start having the segregation by income. And probably we need mostly focus on this, not on racial, like in USA, for instance. But I don't know yet how to incorporate this into the analysis.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask a question.
Last one question, please.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for your presentation. I wanted to ask also concerning your empirical study. So are you thinking about having an empirical study in this work? You said that this will be mostly methodological and theoretical, but anyway, are you planning to do it? And if so, what will be the empirical object of your study? Is it the city, or these are people, or it is everything joined together?
Yeah, I would like to conduct an empirical study. However, I do not, I cannot decide whether it will be some objects in space, like social institutions, some social objects of infrastructure, or if it will be people who like who move in the city and communicate with others. So maybe this will be the combination of some two-mode network or something else. But yeah, these are the objects that I'm considering.
So thank you, Tamara. I think that now we shall move to the second presentation. We just have two for this section, but we must be in timing, so because probably other participants of our sections want to move to another one after this two presentation will finished. So I will share my screen now. Wait a sec. Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
And now you still see my presentation?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Great. I'm happy to share with you preliminary results of project, which is based on the quite old idea, which came to me on the third year of my PhD project, but it's a whole new study because we finished data analysis just several weeks ago, and it was our first try. And I will talk about myths about the crowd, which exist in social theory. And so we conduct this project in collaboration with Daria Massova. So today I will present, and we all together will answer to your question after it. So why it is interesting to study this crowd mythology? Basically, it is known that in social theory, crowd is one of the main concepts, like social process or social capital or collective action, has many definitions. And it also has many different interpretations. And in the history of crowd research, it was associated and referenced by different objects, like urban crowds, like online crowds nowadays. And it was shown by different authors. Firstly, it was Clark MacPhail with his famous book titled the myth of mating crowd from Plato to Elias Canetti, that traditional irrational semantic of crowd, where crowd was treated as rational, feminine, destructive, and violent, was replaced by the semantic of rational crowd. With the shift to analysis of social movements, scientists decided that it is important to say that people in crowds can be rational, they can achieve some goals, they can put and have some goals, and generally research this semantics became dominate. And it looks like in 21st century, rational semantic was supplemented by new ideas associated with such notions as wisdom and as creativity, which was interconnected with the idea of online crowd. And in 2005, quite famous book by Jeff Howe titled Crowdsourcing was published, and generally after it, a lot of different authors were trying to understand whether really we can say about wise, intelligence, and creative crowd, or it is a kind of myth. On the basis of these presuppositions, we decided to put two research questions. First of all, we want to understand whether these new ideas about wisdom, creativity, intelligence of crowd could be treated as a new myth of or semantic of crowd thinking, right? Whether it is possible to compare this myth with ideas of irrationality or rationality of crowds. And our second question is about general logic of scientific ideas development, right? Since we are going to use methodology of citation network analysis, we want to look at this process of shifting from the ideas of mating or irrational and violent crowd to the ideas of rational, creative crowd. And our question is, it possible to observe this shift, whether it's real process or and not, independent research areas. Yeah. So as I said, we used the methodology of citation network analysis, and on the basis of Web of Science core collection publication base. And of course, it was crucial for us, first of all, to create appropriate research query, which will help us to represent different semantics which we wanted to found. So we initially, for this presentation, we collected data with such query based on queries: crowd violence, crowd madness, irrational crowd, crowd intelligence, crowd wisdom, rational crowd, and creative crowd. It was our idea not to use such wide concepts, for example, as crowd itself, because we wanted to get precise data and not to get a lot of noise, which we will definitely collect if we will put the word crowd, for example, in the query, because you may know that crowds, they are studied not only in social sciences, but also in biology, in other natural sciences, and it could create some problems for us. Yeah, we collected records for each of our publication, and I suppose that many in our audience today already saw this example. It's a typical example of description of each publications which we get from Web of Science, and we use this information to construct network of, for example, author, right? So we can also analyze keywords. Yeah, and we can analyze journals because we also have information about source here. But I will show later that we will focus on just network of works, publications here. But it is also important to emphasize that we collected, first of all, we collected information about hits. It's works with complete description, like here, which we get in Web of Science. And then we also collected information about cited only works, which we do not get from Web of Science, but which was cited in the Web of Science references. Generally, when we combine hits and cited only works, we get more than 80,000 records in our data set. And finally, when we reduced the number of publications and choose all which was precisely important for us, we get 3,104 records which we wanted to analyze. And we constructed networks. Basic network was quite huge, right? And we decided that we want to analyze just network of publications which has more than 3 citations, and that's how we solved the boundary problem. And that's why we get 7,000 nodes, works, right? And more than 25,000 arcs. Yeah, and so I have 9 minutes left. So moving to the phase of analysis, usually we check basic parameters like in-degree distribution, and you can see that here why we choose this boundary of more than 3 citations. You can see that we have a lot of works which have just 1, 2, or 3 citations, and much less which has more than, for example, 50, and only 1 work which has around 500 citations. Not that much, actually, but it's quite a lot. And you can see the distribution of publications per years. We started this analysis from the year 1870, because it is the time when first crowd research, scientific crowd research, appeared in the West and in Russia. And you can see that, yeah, there is significant increase in publications since 1950s, and it's going to maximum in 2010s. Which is quite logic, because exactly here we may expect appearance of publications associated with wisdom, creativity, and crowd intelligence. And here you can see most cited works, and it was kind of surprise for us because here we get only publications associated with crowdsourcing and wisdom of crowds. First one by Shuravievsky, it's, kind of a hit. He was the first who opened this topic of crowd wisdom in public. Also, we have this hit by Jeff Howe, The Rise of Crowdsourcing, which I already mentioned today. And you can see here a lot of different sources associated with this topic of crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, and different types of this kind of usage of crowd to solve some problems. So we moved to main path analysis. Main path analysis, it's a methodology which is used to construct and to define the most important publications and their ties and ties between them in our network of works devoted to the crowd violence, wisdom, and creativity. And what we find out here, we also actually observe only publications associated with wisdom, intelligence, without any reference to rationality or irrationality, right? This semantics which we may want to find. Basic analysis showed that this main path consists from three main parts. First group of scientists started from here. They wrote about group decision making. Second part from Yaniv to Menes, they wrote about group judgments, and actually third part from Rahut to Madurola, they also talking about group judgments and group decision making, but they put more efforts to analyze how social influence may affect on group judgments and how it is possible to use it to improve performance of group judgments, or how it's possible to overcome problems associated with social influence. We also analyzed K-road. It is broader main path, which has different more different lines, but generally it is quite the same in sense of this logic. But it is important to say that here we found at least one publication, which is by Molik on the right side, which is associated with this idea of wisdom or madness, comparison of different ideas about crowds and how they may perform in sense of evaluation of finding the arts. And also we found probably the work which started this discussion in 1950s, 60s about group performance and comparison of group performance to individual performance, and we suppose that it is quite interesting. And usually we analyze islands. It's clusters of publications which might be visible in our network, and we had 153 islands. We analyzed 10 biggest with more than 6 works, and 6 of them were relevant. Relevant in sense of content, right? Because one of associated with biology research, one of was associated with research of alcohol and drugs usage and nightclubs for some reason. But 6 were relevant, and here they are. First island is basically our K-road, which is mostly fulfilled by scientists and publications associated with group swarm intelligence, crowd wisdom, and it is like main body of our work sample. Second island is mostly associated with idea of collective violence and contemporary crowd theory. We did not observe this topic of violence in our main path. However, we found out that we have at least island of people who are still study, for example, violent crowds in cities, who study violence in sport events. And also there is some work here. There is a work here which is talking about contemporary crowd theory in sense of this concept. We found out that there is 2 islands, number 3, number 4, associated. One is associated with analysis of crowd behavior. It is so people who are trying to simulate how people behave online or offline, how, for example, pedestrians behave, and how it is possible to predict pedestrians' flows. And we also find out that there is a island associated with analysis of crowd behavior, also with usage of some mathematical models. And the last but not the least, last 2 clusters, 5 and 6, they are associated with topics of crowdfunding and crowdsourcing, everything about it. And for example, there is a publication by Wexler, which is talking about rethinking of crowd definition in sense of appearance of such topic as crowdsourcing. And there is, for example, quite important publication by Estelis and his co-authors. They suggested general definition of crowdsourcing, and that's why it's quite important. Yeah, and brief conclusions. I said that it's preliminary stage of our research, and we are going to improve it. First of all, we can't say yes or no, strictly answering our question about existence of myths of creativity or wisdom of crowd, because we really observe clusters of work related to wisdom and creativity, but we are not sure yet that we can relate them to traditional crowd thinking, because we may say that actually object substitution might take place, because we're not sure yet that people who are talking about group decision making and crowd wisdom, they are talking about really same crowds as people who are talking about rational crowds, about mass movements and and collective action. And it's also important for us that actually this research area is highly associated with crowdsourcing, and we know that crowdsourcing techniques are really associated with managing of people. And it's not just crowds themselves, it's sometimes some smart software which help people to give some collective judgments. And talking about second questions, we did not find any shift, because we, as you observe on the main path analysis, we found just cluster devoted to creative crowd literature. But we also use, seeds approach to say to algorithms which seeds publications we want to analyze, and then we will try to reconstruct analysis of main path and to see how this wisdom topic is related to the topic of irrationality and rationality of crowds. Okay, thank you. I think I just talked 2 minutes more. And I think that we really don't have time for questions, but if somebody will stay here, and we may have one, for example.
Well, Stas, I think you did a real good job explaining what you have done, so maybe that's why people don't have the questions.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think that it's real results, because we do not have answers which we want to find yet. I think that next try would be Sunbelt, and for Sunbelt we will collect this information about seeds. But we had to conduct this analysis, preliminary one, to find out whether general logic of this project is possible, and we saw that we have some our intuitions was proven, and I think it's necessary to wait for the next steps.
Stas, I guess we have a question from Ivan Klimov, because there is a raised hand.
I just don't see hands because I see just my screen. Wait a second.
Okay, Stanislav and Daria, thank you very much. And I want to ask you about the future directions for your research. For example, what do you think about the connections between other forms of collective behavior or collective actions with protest movements or social movements at large?
Actually, so it's a great question, and it's important for us to include this, I could say, body of literature into our research. We just did not find anything related to these topics with our query, which we used now, because we suppose this query was too narrow. It led us to find a lot of literature associated with crowd wisdom and crowdsourcing, but we did not get anything important and important in sense of amount of citations in the areas of collective protests, and but we expect that if we will broaden our query, we will collect publications associated with these protests and semantics of crowd and collective violence and destructive behavior, and also with semantic of collective rational behavior, with idea of social movements. And actually, it is what we want to find, and we want to show this shift, from of different focus in sense of analysis of this crowd or collective behavior and action.
I see. Thank you.
Okay, I suppose that we may finish our section for now. It was a section devoted to the network analysis and the topic of social movements, and we talked about urban segregation and about the analysis of differences in crowd semantics through the centuries. Thanks a lot for all participants who joined us in this section, and we are welcome you to our sections of our lab, which will take place